Welcome, Anuj, to the second Product Growth Masterclass. Anuj, you might have seen on his LinkedIn profile, is a senior product leader at Swiggy, and he looks after product growth and revenue. We are today in the midst of a crisis, right, the likes of which none of us has seen before. So perhaps I can request him to share his background, his journey. How did a much younger, a decade younger Anuj react to that crisis? What did you do at that time?
I think this one is completely different. For one, we are way more digitally connected. We are way more intertwined. Like technology has been much more intertwined in whatever we do. Like the likes of Flipkart, Swiggy, etc. were not even there in 10 years back. The India at that time actually didn't have a lot of consumer technology products. Many of the startups were just starting to come up, but none had really made a big dent out of a few companies, maybe in travel and matrimony and so on. It was still the wild west of the internet. People were still only the tier one upper middle class people were connected to the internet using desktop computers. Mobile revolution hadn't happened, and it's almost like it's exciting to see what we have been able to achieve as a society in the last 10 years. I think we are much better placed now, given all this technological connectivity, to handle the crisis even 10 years later. Given that we are able to do this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, 10 years back, while I and Ajay were talking about not only like my own point of view on how I dealt with the crisis then, but also how overall product management was in the country at that time, and the state of the startups and so on. So a few fundamental changes that I see now. I think it's gotten way more mature now. 10 years back, almost no startup founder would be able to tell you what does a product manager even do.
Yeah.
What does that function? What is the purpose that the function serves?
Yeah.
What are the gives and gets? When do you say that? When is the right time to hire a product manager? What are the responsibilities that I'll give him? How much trust will I have in my team? And literally the questions everybody would ask in the leadership and otherwise. But if the business folks are running the business, engineering people are coding, designers are designing, what are you guys doing? So hopefully we are in a much better situation right now. Yeah. But I think the ecosystem is, while it has evolved in the last 10 years, there is still a long way to go for India as a community, and also Indian startup ecosystem to truly realize the potential of great product management.
A little bit about that. How did the product management within a company like Flipkart, which obviously has become the largest success story out of India, right? And interestingly, it was also started in 2008, the last big downturn, right? So some insights, some comments from there.
Oh, absolutely. I think we can talk quite in depth, but I'll keep it brief. So, look, when I joined Flipkart, that was back in 2010, and in fact, I was interviewing there for an SD3 for front end engineering.
Right.
And during our interviews, I think I and Sachin and a couple more senior leaders talked about that hey, it seems that there is this new role called product manager that we have been hearing, who connects business, technology, engineering, etc., etc. And it looks like you have good consumer empathy. So maybe the products that we are seeing right now are not at the kind of quality that we would expect them to be. Would you want to do that?
Yeah.
And I was very naive then, and I thought that, hey, this doesn't seem like something that I would want to do. I am a builder. I want to build things myself.
Right.
But I think also at that time I realized that A is a great thing to be a builder, but who builds the plan for the builders? How do we even build some method to this madness? So I started reading up, etc. Not fully convinced. I asked Sachin that I'll still use 50% of my time coding, and he laughed it off and he said, once you join, you won't even have time to kind of install your ID. So great days though. But I think the important part to realize again, I've worked with a lot of founders, like from then to now. It is, for example, Harsha, and earlier that was Sachin, and a couple more founders in between. It's still like 10 years back versus now. Product management and its flavor, some of those are still as strong as they were then. So you still need to have really, really strong consumer backwards thinking. and first principles thinking, raw problem solving skills, really
Mm-hmm.
crazy ones,
Yeah.
and insane passion and grit. I think those are the ones that are not going away anytime. With
Perfect. Yeah.
with some of those, you have to build your trust with your founders, with your leaders,
Mm-hmm.
because product management is a job of trust and influence.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not able to demonstrate your repeatability when you're
Yeah.
working towards some of these things,
Yeah.
then you won't be able to make a lot of difference.
And I think what we are seeing now that Swiggy has been able to react so quickly during the current crisis, right? A bunch of activities have been done very rapidly over the last couple of weeks, starting with zero contact deliveries to repositioning Swiggy stores to do groceries, Swiggy Genie for instant pickup and drop off again for the for picking the essentials from the nearby stores. So, what has helped you and Swiggy to actually build a culture, build a team, product management team, which is able to deliver on these? Because in the times of crisis, although the jobs to be done, remain more or less the same. Perhaps the necessity aspects become more important, but the goals, the emotional aspects, dramatically change. Right? How does a company, how does a team react quickly to such a scenario, changing scenario?
So let me break this down into like two or three different areas. One, you talked about the culture. How you able to build a culture where you are able to describe or able to build with agility and
Mm-hmm.
quickly respond to the situation of the market. That's
Yeah.
one. Uh, B, as you said, jobs to be done may remain the same, but the way people would use them would be a little different. Like these are the two main parts, and I'll
Yeah.
connect some of those things also.
Yeah.
Uh, so just to think about, first I talked about in my Flipkart question as well, which is you have to think about the customer. That's the most important thing. Customer backwards thinking is
Mm-hmm.
probably ingrained in Swiggy so deeply, and I don't mean it in a warm and fuzzy way. I
Yeah.
mean it in a way which is deeply rooted with respect to the decisions that we take, and it is
Mm-hmm.
really something that we want to understand deeply. The one
Yeah.
thing that, for example, we talk about at Swiggy is something called accepted customer belief. So
Mm-hmm.
you look at different kind of customer segments, and you look at what is it that they believe today, and how would we want them to believe in when we launch a feature or when we
Mm-hmm.
launch a set of features in say a period of a quarter. Like
Yeah.
overall, the different personas and their value,
Mm-hmm.
how would that change in a quarter if we are able to deliver a few newer offerings to our customers. So
Yeah.
for example, when uh, earlier before the crisis, say in a particular segment of people, say college students, etc., their
Mm-hmm.
accepted customer belief and the way market was behaving was, I do not order unless there's a discount. I
Mm-hmm.
love fast deliveries. I will choose from a bunch of restaurants on Swiggy, but I have these some of these as my favorites, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And we were responding to not only those guys but a lot of other segments with the set of products that we are building, and try
Yeah.
to see like what is the biggest base that we can cater to with the product that we choose to build, and at the
Mm-hmm.
same time how much would they move up in the value chain.
Right.
Now today's accepted customer belief with this COVID situation is that, hey, I am scared. I don't know whether food delivery is safe.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot go outside. uh, I do not have kitchen in my place. This is again for the same persona that I talked about.
Uh-huh.
I still don't have money in my pocket, which is
Yeah.
like more than 200 rupees. Uh, and now with this accepted customer belief, now Swiggy understands as well. This is your new product market fit. Where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
now if I build a product which says that, hey, don't worry, we will give you something which is very safe. Your delivery
Mm-hmm.
partners are safe also. You will get something which is not very expensive. You
Mm-hmm.
may not get something which is very fast. So we also anticipate that your empathy towards not getting something like instantly in 30 minutes, etc., is fine.
Yeah.
uh, so with all of those things, you then take one product to market, which is, say, so all of the suite of products that
Mm-hmm.
we are launching, be it Swiggy Genie, Swiggy stores, or
Mm-hmm.
even our contactless deliveries or Hope Not Hunger campaign, were
Right.
all a part of very quick but methodical ways of understanding our customers and then
Mm-hmm.
making sure that these are taken care of by that.
Got it.
That's the one part. The
Mm-hmm.
second one, which is the culture and how our product management teams or like overall company is
Mm-hmm.
able to move from point one to point two, right?
Yeah.
Is around how do we actually build our growth teams themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the ones which, for example, are very difficult for companies to get right. How do I organize my company in a way which is able to respond in an agile way, but at the same time is able to launch new businesses or work on some absolute core things. For example, if search or say core logistics is going to be very, very important, irrespective of which time of the year we are in, are we invested well enough? So there's a simple framework that we follow. So we have 5 different parameters. We look at impact, confidence, speed, need for quality, and agility as these 5 parameters. And we say that in this year, how much of these things do we want with respect to our projects or our offerings that we want to build? For example, we have set up 5 different kind of teams. There's a core team, there is a labs team, there's a new businesses team, there's a growth team, or there's an X team. Now, for example, the core team gives you medium to high impact with medium to high confidence projects with low to medium speed, but extremely high quality, but low agility during the quarter. Whereas a new business lines team, which is our stores and Genie team, etc., gives you extremely high impact, very high speed, very maybe okay quality, not great quality to begin with, very high agility, but probably lower confidence. Which means that so you have to make those trade-off ahead of time. That in that team you can't expect, for example, to launch with supreme quality like a very well thought through Swiggy Pop or a Swiggy Super feature. You have to go ahead in the market, try to solve the consumer's problems, and work on faster feedback and iteration versus a methodically crafted pricing strategy for Swiggy Super or methodically crafted Swiggy Pop experience with only which dishes, etc. So with this thing, all we need to do is, like, now that we have the engines running on in terms of growth teams, we have to make sure that those teams are now more funded and take the center stage during this time. And the company kind of pivots to that.
I think you talked about these 5 parameters, right? Using these parameters, the various teams get built, right? Is in some sense you're saying that I think the question that Rudian is asking is, are these teams structured horizontally or are they product specific?
Yes. So different. I think again, horses for courses. So the core teams, for example, are structured around the core capabilities that we want to build. For example, search as a capability is something that is core to us, and that powers our EDM. EDM, we call it as effective decision making, which is discovery, search, recommendations, etc. So search is kind of a team which looks at that, or core logistics, or serviceability, or call center, things like that, which are core teams that will be evergreen, that will always be helpful there. Versus, for example, new business lines is say stores and Genie and so on. They are full stack teams. Those teams are not going to depend on the front end or the back end. They are full stack ones. So they may not be the best ones at search or best ones at something else, but they are full stack ones. Labs is not only full stack with respect to software technology, but also hardware technology. So we think about like building Maggie machines, or we think about building drones and either other areas. So and it's an endless conversation, Ajay, that companies have not been able to figure out. In a way, I would say choose your poison. There is no right answer to this. You have to figure out that what ways are you building this, building your teams, and figure out what are the gives and gets of those. There's a good book called Team Topologies, which I encourage product and technology leaders to read, which goes like way deep into this topic, because your architectural design, even though your usability design and how the product actually comes out, is a big result of how you have structured your teams. So it's very important to know that and understand what are the gives and gets there.
And Anuj, I think you joined Swiggy in 2016. And at that time, Swiggy was doing around 1.5 million orders a month. Right? And in October 2019, which is roughly 3 years after Anuj had joined, Swiggy announced that they were doing more than 1.5 million orders per day. So from 1.5 million orders a month to 1.5 million orders a day, which is a 30x growth in 3 years, right? I mean, it's a phenomenal growth that Swiggy, has achieved in the last year. Interestingly, what happened is somewhere in 2018, Swiggy Harsha announced that the company has set a goal of 1 million orders a day, which was supposed to be achieved in 2020. Clearly, company was able to execute better, and I was able to achieve it faster. So the question I wanted to ask Anuj was that there are business goals that get set at the senior management level, right? How does one take those goals? How does the product function take those goals? And those goals need not only be about orders; they can be about number of customers, number of restaurants, efficiency of delivery folks, 100 other things, right? How do you take those goals and break them down into into an action plan, into a roadmap, into a specific plan of activities? What is the way that Swiggy does it?
Question has a core assumption that the strategic planning and goal setting and road mapping is done top down. And usually that's how it happens if your product teams are not strong enough and do not have their own roadmap, which is built bottom up. That, hey, we are working on this particular area, and these are the things. If I did not get any other strategic direction, I would keep on working on these areas, etc. That happens at the product manager level, for example. And if you have a collaborative product culture, then your mid-senior product leaders would kind of come together, jam together, and say, hey, if all of us got together, we could build these 5 or 6 big offerings also. The third one, at the senior product leaders, like for example VPs like myself, etc. Usually what we do is they are very engaged with for example CXOs and so on in helping them craft the strategy. So you have to influence that at the direct level rather than just taking a top down roadmap and goals. So it is usually a mixture of top down and bottom up, because if you're just taking top down goals, so it causes two things. A, you may not have the roadmap to even hit those goals properly. There may be a lot of core assumptions that may break on the fly, and then if they are just cascaded down to product managers, and then there is really a lot of loss with respect to innovation and the tribal knowledge that your product managers and even business folks, engineering, design folks possess. So that's very risky. So it needs to come from top down and bottom up.
That's a good point.
So that's one. B, I think in Swiggy, what at least a product function tries to do is before even the annual strategic planning process, we try to actually do a bottom-up proposal of this is what our roadmap could look like. So let me give an example. Like in 2018 was a time when we were doing like a lot of this. 2017, in fact 2017ish, when we said that if we had to take only 10 big bets every quarter and 10 needle moving things, and I'll come to the big bet framework, but if we had to do 10 needle moving things, now from whatever knowledge that we have gathered from our business and technology, etc. folks, there were like line items which were like say 150, 200 that we could do. And if we had to lay it out and say only 10 every quarter, then we would let's arrange these big bets into like 4 different buckets. So buckets were, for example, focus on the customer, like build for an awesome customer experience, or focus on fundamentals, which is technology fundamentals, economic fundamentals, business fundamentals, and so on. Third one was focus on the future. So do you want to take larger bets, bigger bets, which we were doing grocery at that time. We took that bet then, and right. So that's
it's paying off. It's helping a lot right now.
Right. And fourth one was, for example, focus on competition and agility. So during your quarter, do you want to like really be tied down with the entire roadmap just yet, or if competition moves the other way and like have they found out something? Then would you rather they just follow your roadmap or change that? So we did, like, for example, 3 different scenario analysis. Like if the company or the leadership wants, for example, hey, this year is going to be more focused on competition and economics, but here's what we lose out. Here's what we lose out with respect to taking a larger bet in the future, or what we lose out is agility, for example. I'm just making this up. So we did like 3 different scenario analysis, and we said that this is what step or strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3 looks like. These are the metrics that we are likely to achieve, but also the other goodnesses that we'll do. We are protecting our future more in strategy 1, but whereas we are responding to competition better, etc. So and I think it will become a subjective discussion, because goals and metrics are set hard in stone, but the core capability or the consciousness of the organization that you raise, which is our competitive advantage, etc. is also very important. So you can't be blind to the software aspects when you're chasing only the bigger goals.
Agreed.
And I think product managers or product leaders definitely have to bring out, do this exercise, work with their leaders and give them a bottom up view of what the company could look like. And then on top of that, when you are laid down with or you get the information of strategic priorities, you can merge them and you can then build a good roadmap.
And I think you touched upon two things, and I love your hear more a little bit more about that. You talked about cascading down, right? Bottom up, top down. Getting to some rhythm, and then cascading it down, right? And the most common framework used there is OKRs, and I think we have had some conversation around that. That together with the Big Bets framework, could you share a little bit about your perspective on the OKR framework? How well does it work? Does it work or not work for you guys? Your experience in that, and if it doesn't, then what's an alternative for that?
Ajay, I think again, horses for courses. I think OKR framework works very well with a few set of companies, and I don't mean a few set of companies culturally. I'm saying in just share the business that they're in. For example, Swiggy is a company which is a three-way marketplace. And I often describe it as in terms of complexity, multiplication, for example, an Amazon and an Uber. Like it's a multiplication of complexity of e-commerce and hyperlocal logistics. OKRs, I think, as a framework works well when the planning etc. is done. Actually, it's fine. It could be done like either way. But when it is easier to cascade down those goals or metrics to individual team members and expect them to like either come up with a roadmap, or you can give them a roadmap also, but they are able to break down the problem into smaller ends and then cleanly distribute. And then you can kind of make sure that if there is complexity, then you are making those teams talk with each other and work it out so that you are hitting a goal. In Swiggy, though, usually what we find is because of the three-way marketplace nature, usually one metric is never going to be a significant, or even three metrics are never going to be a significant indicator of whether we executed something well or we built something of value. So we look for win-win-wins. So we look for wins for the consumer, wins for delivery partners, win for restaurant partners, and wins for Swiggy. And we tend to see like which of these projects are going to really unlock value everywhere. For example, Swiggy Pop, when we launched it, it was a win for the consumer because they were now not getting the choice of endless restaurants, and now single serve meals were possible. They were a win for restaurants because now we would be able to give them predictable orders ahead of time. That next week prepare these 50 because we will sell those. It was not really a win for delivery executives, but a very small win because they could now stand at the restaurant. So they could do a good amount of batching. Right, and then it was a win for Swiggy because of the P&L and like a new unlock that we would create. Right now, if I had to do it through OKRs, which product manager would it go to? Would it go to the consumer side one, or the restaurant side one, or somebody else, or would I give it to all the four of them and expect them to magically work together? It will still come back to like that core problem solving. And the other reason why I say in complex marketplaces where every metric is tied back into every other, you have to think about it a little differently, because what we also see in Swiggy is butterfly effects, and butterfly effects meaning a small variation in say earnings per hour of delivery executive can have a massive difference in say conversion rate on the consumer side. And how is that math even working out? So we have to understand that. But with these butterfly effects, I think OKRs can become risky. If you understand your business very, very well, which is, I'm not saying that I'm against OKRs. In fact, you have to think about OKRs in the same way. Do you have mastery over your business? Do you understand your business very clearly? Do you know the growth equations of your business?
Excellent. Okay, so we get on to the next part. So we'll do a switch to habits, because I think that was one of the most popular questions that were asked there. Right? And I would love to get your comments on that one. But I'll start off by maybe highlighting one or two things. Number one, I think long ago, I think 2015, when we started talking with Harsha, I think one of the first things he mentioned was that food, Swiggy is in the business of food, and people eat food 3 or 4 times a day. Therefore, the natural frequency of usage for Swiggy can be, in the best case, 100 to 120 orders per month per customer. Right, so that's one aspect that has stuck with me, since then. The natural frequency is an important criteria. The other part, at least from our perspective, that we are not very fond of the most famous framework for habits, which is Neeral's hook model. I think it kind of ignores the natural frequency concept, and it prompts companies to spam their customers by creating these external triggers, what he called external triggers. So I wanted to get your perspective on, how does Swiggy look at this habit, and how do you go about, in a systematic way, maybe pick 1 or 2 examples of increasing the frequency of usage?
Now, that's a fantastic question, and probably will require like an hour on its own if we have to get into the depth of. But here are my few thoughts on this one. I think frameworks like say Hooked and others, I think are probably a little more okay. So you used frameworks like of building habit on top once you have identified some of the core assumptions about your customer itself. I think what the Hooked framework kind of misses, or at least which I didn't find in that one, is just how much deep you need to understand your consumer. You need to build a product which really works for the user itself before you try to increase the frequency by 20%, 30%. That is not really building habit. So the 3 things that I look at this entire thing, and is your product or your business itself in a place where you can build habits. For example, and the frequency of that habit also is very, very important. So if you're selling luxury furniture, there is no way that you are going to build habit of like people coming and buying it. So that's why the natural frequency concept is very, very important. What is the absolute max that you can reach if your product was super duper habitual and like just worked? Just imagine in your wildest dreams, what would that number be? So that is great. Now the second thing that you do is actually that 120 number or that 90 meals number is a fantastic answer in 20-15 days. Now I think, and that was a hopeless romantic answer. But now the real way to understand that is look at it segment wise, and look at it persona wise, and look at it value wise. So one simple thing that Swiggy, for example, does is it has 2 axes in which it understands consumers. One is the CLTV, or the value axis.
You call it Okat,
for example. I call it the Okat axis also. So not really so think about it. So you don't only look at the CLTV axis with respect to what is the value that consumers are giving you today. You also look at whether this person is, for example, will be able to pay you that. Okat hogi ka kabhi bhi. So look at that axis. The other one, that's one axis of value. The other axis is actually of behavior. Ideally, there should be a third axis of personas as well. But today at Swiggy, we multiply behavior and personas into just one axis and define very wildly different user behaviors. For example, there are people who are weekend discount seekers, who will only seek discounts on weekends because they are building bigger carts, because they're ordering for families. But on weekdays, they are speed seekers, and so we want to label them. Then there are people who are students, and students behave very differently. Students and young professionals, but with a particular bent of mind. So what we call them, for example, non-Snapchat students and young professionals, because Snapchat ones usually also look at they have higher Okat as well. So if you do like X cross Y and understand each cell well, and then think about what is the behavior, why is their behavior this today, why are they repeating 2 times a month today, and what is the natural frequency in which they can go if you had the best service in the world. So think about this: somebody living in South Bombay with like cooks and maids and everybody, their natural frequency is not going to be more than 4 or 5 times a month. They have a driver, they have everybody. Probably the only unlocks that you can get to them, and in fact that's fantastic. What we found out in South Bombay is like a lot of people, rich people, were using Swiggy to help their maids and drivers. Even that is a fair use case for us. So we try to understand what kind of natural frequencies that you absolutely have to can reach within this. and to reach that goal, where are we here today, and what is that delta?
Yeah.
Now that is a part that you try to understand. Why are these people not ordering as much as they could?
Yeah.
Given the current marketplace situation that we are in, given the number of restaurants, the speed that we have, and to improve that one, what can we do?
Yeah.
And that natural frequency, that question you keep on asking yourself, why am I not able to get that? And habit is just a means to an end. That habit will take you there.
Got
You have
it.
to understand that part.
Got
Now you can think about, for example, triggers as one way to do that. But you can think about a whole bunch of other things. You can think about even the unintended areas where you keep on doing the great things. Your word of mouth will spread. A lot of people will keep on talking. It becomes a social norm, and it just enters the habit of the user.
Yeah, agree. Maybe pick one or two examples where where if you could talk about. And I think one of the questions that was asked. Let me pick up the name so that I get it right. Was asked was about super. How was super? Subscription used to. Actually, several people have asked this question, so I don't have a name. But to build this habit, is that, or pick any example that you think makes sense and helps us understand this little better at a concrete level.
Right. So let me talk about super. And again, just like the question of life, purpose of life, it's the equivalent question on how should I build my subscription/loyalty program.
Yes.
There are finite number of data points and points of view that you will have. Should I build a tiered program? Should I build a single benefit program? Should I build a paid program versus should I build a program which is in which you can earn and burn coins, like for example what Flipkart is now doing versus what Amazon. Should I build it in a tiered way, like an Emirates program, which is there are 3 tiers, but you can stay in this particular tier for as long as you keep on doing ABCD things versus something else, etc., etc. So there is no easy answers.
Yeah.
I can talk about the approach that we took, and I think we took the very simplistic approach that we understood, and which was the first principle approach of what is accepted customer belief today. Why are they not reaching that natural frequency that they can? That's one. And B, what is our capability today? And C, how can we keep it like extremely simple? So one of the things that we were hearing across these X plus Y segments is that I hate delivery fee. Or I don't like delivery fee, but or either because I don't like the idea of delivery fee itself, A, or B, hey, I get bill shocked when I come to the cart. When I see this delivery fee /surge and other things like that, especially from our high frequency users. For the low frequency users, because they were ordering 4 or 5 times in a month.
To build this habit, is that, or pick any example that you think makes sense and helps us understand this little better at a concrete level.
Right. So let me talk about super. And again, just like the question of life, purpose of life. It's the equivalent question on how should I build my subscription/loyalty program.
Yes.
There are finite number of data points and points of view that you will have. Should I build a tiered program? Should I build a single benefit program? Should I build a paid program versus should I build a program which is in which you can earn and burn coins, like for example what Flipkart is now doing versus what Amazon. Should I build it in a tiered way, like an Emirates program, which is there are 3 tiers, but you can stay in this particular tier for as long as you keep on doing ABCD things versus something else, etc., etc. So there is no easy answers. I can talk about the approach that we took, and I think we took the very simplistic approach that we understood, and which was the first principle approach of what is accepted customer belief today. Why are they not reaching that natural frequency that they can? That's one. And B, what is our capability today? And C, how can we keep it like extremely simple? So one of the things that we were hearing across these X plus Y segments is that I hate delivery fee. Or I don't like delivery fee, but or either because I don't like the idea of delivery fee itself, A, or B, hey, I get bill shocked when I come to the cart. When I see this delivery fee /surge and other things like that, especially from our high frequency users. For the low frequency users, because they were ordering 4 or 5 times in a month, they would probably be okay. But for somebody who's ordering, like say 20 times, 18 times a month, could and if they thought that they were giving enough value to Swiggy, and shouldn't Swiggy reward them back? or at least remove this mental math that they have to do and kind of looking at their pocket, etc., etc. Right? So that's one. So we started on this journey on what are the benefits that we can deliver to our users through loyalty and or through a subscription program, a membership program. So we looked at the bouquet of things that we could do or the benefits. And a lot of users, for example, asked us, we ran a survey, we ran quants, we ran qualitative surveys and so on. A lot of people asked us, can you give us 100% sure delivery? People asking us, can you give us faster deliveries? Or can you make sure that I get more discounts on my favorite restaurants or more discounts overall, etc. Right? So once again, we like to do scenario analysis. Like if we do ABCD things, what is the impact? So the simple RISE framework that for example is popularized by Facebook is a good one to use here. So if you think about something, what is the reach that you will get? Like how many consumers are you going to impact? B is a R for reach, I for impact itself. Like how big is that impact? How many people will love it? C is the confidence that people are saying they will do it, but will they really shift their behaviors? And E is the effort. So I think in a lot of cases in hyperlocal companies or logistics companies, the answers become simpler because effort is usually insane. If you had to do faster deliveries for a set of consumers versus somebody else, it is not a clear slam dunk because you may end up screwing up experiences of other people because the currency is still the same. So you will kill that part. So it's not. So the C is also low, confidence is low, and the effort is extremely high. A lot of technology needs to be built, and the time to market will be lost. So using all of these considerations, so long story short, we did 5 or 6 scenario analysis, but we literally took landing pages of those programs to our users. I love to say show don't tell. Like you have to show it to the user, let them feel it. And in fact, to the people that we showed it to, after 15 days, we basically went back to them and asked, assume that you have used this for 2-3 times this benefit. How do you feel about this right now, etc., etc. So we tried to simulate it offline without building the technology, and eventually we landed up on Super, which in its current shape.
Whenever people talk about scale, one ends up thinking about demand side scale, right? How many customers do you have? How many app downloads? What is the DAU? What is the MAU? Those kind of things, right? But in the scenario that Swiggy operates in, how do you look at scale and how do you solve for scale?
That's a fantastic question. I think scale is ingrained into Swiggy from the day that it was born. I think one of the principles that Swiggy always followed was a customer-centric approach, that we will not give a poor experience to our consumers as much as possible, and we will scale only when we are ready to scale. So, for example, Swiggy was only in 7-8 cities till like a good 2.5 years or close to 3 years. It's only the last 2 years that it has started expanding.
When the Swiggy first ran the popular TV campaign, it was still in 7-8 cities, which is shocking actually for people to correlate the two things. But yeah, please go ahead.
I'll talk about. Let me answer that question also first. When Swiggy is doing this, of course, it is about marketing spillage because you get like a lot of eyeballs that you're not serving. But you know what? It also gives us. It gives us downloads in the cities, and when we were trying to figure out which cities to launch into, so the demand on there, it becomes a great indication for us to now. These are the cities you instantly go and solve for. And because if those cities weren't serviced by any other food delivery service, it is not spilled marketing. It is just marketing that works for you a little. Coming back to scale, I mean, very quickly, what we started realizing and ingraining within the company itself, that it is a 3-sided marketplace, and you will very quickly, from whichever area that you approach it from, you will need to go back to your fundamentals. So, for example, even if you look at conversion rates, there is a conversion rate if you have less than 80 restaurants in a particular area. And there's a different curve that follows from 80 to 225, and beyond 225 to say 300. And after X number of restaurants, the conversion rate starts falling. So because of like massive choices, etc., right? So if you understand your growth equation well, I think your scale equation is going to be like very clear to you as well. If you understand like which levers to pull and why is growth going to happen, then it will tell you that hey, you need to have X number of delivery executives, X number of Y number of restaurants, and Z number of customers to kind of kickstart or your engine in a particular city. So in fact, the way Swiggy starts is it first starts getting supply of restaurants. You have to sign up with at least a minimum number of those. You have to get in delivery executives, and you need to keep on paying them for some time, and then you start your marketing engine when, say, consumers come, so that once they order, they do have a reasonable amount of experience, rather than getting consumers but say launching a city only with 3 restaurants. So that's kind of been ingrained into Swiggy itself. There's also some key metrics that we use. Again, the framework in Swiggy is we call ADS, which is a very supply side framework called availability, discoverability, serviceability of all these. And for companies which have mastered their business, they will be able to use these metrics to which I call analog to digital levers. So if, for example, I have my ADS metrics in a particular zone, in a particular area, and if I know my discounting scores, how many restaurants are running what kind of discounts, I will be able to predict consumer behavior in form of my orders per day or conversions. So yeah, I was trying to answer both of this together. It's use ADS or whichever metric that makes sense for your business. But product managers, one first and foremost duty is to find out or build your growth equation. Keep on perfecting that because it's never final. Try to understand as much analog to digital converters. So what are the inputs that need to be true, which are great enough indicators of the outputs or outcomes that you'll get.
How does one think about building a growth team? Swiggy obviously has had a fabulous run over the last 3-4 years. How does a company which is starting off now in these times, how does it think about a growth first, and second, build a growth team so that the company is able to deliver or to achieve the growth that they want to?
I think as all questions in product management, the answer is it depends. What I can do still, I can tell you though is some of the reasonings that I've done while either building a growth team or not. For example, in Snapdeal we had a growth team which I was kind of working with. But we didn't have a growth team in Swiggy for quite some time. And what is the shape of that growth team, etc., also. So remember, I talked about the framework that what is it that the company really wants? What is the stage of the company that you're really in? And then what kind of products that you need in your growth equation to be able to deliver those. So I think growth as a Silicon Valley term is now used for something very specific, which is the DAU, MAU growth through habits and some growth hacking, etc., etc. I really, really detest that part of like thinking growth in such a small way. I think of growth as like understanding your growth equation, understanding where is organic growth anyway going to come from. So for example, 3 years back, Swiggy was on a hockey stick growth curve. It would just launch and it would grow. As long as it launched with reasonable amount of number of restaurants and so on and so forth. Did we need another digital marketing team which would do growth hacking and give like 15% extra growth on top of that? Not really. The way to unlock growth there would be adding more restaurants, getting the catalog right, making sure that they're delivering the right set of products to the consumers, making sure the CX is awesome, because that's where the growth will come with respect to people repeating with you. So I think when kind of growth starts plateauing a little bit, and every company will never be in like complete hockey stick growth path. This is the time then you start thinking about which areas do I choose. For example, at that time in Swiggy, we used to think about there is an opportunity to grow in adjacent categories. Do you want to take an adjacency approach to growth, which is like taking groceries or something else? Like there were like a whole bunch of discussions around, should we go international? Should we start doing bike taxis? There are like tons of things that you could be doing with respect to adjacencies also, right? Or do you want to grow with for example, completely what we say, there's a book called Loon Shots. That's also something that everybody I would encourage should use. It's a completely different way of doing business and so on. So would we take such 0 to 1 ideas that are not even adjacent to what Swiggy is doing? Or do you want to now actually invest in absolute core growth numbers, which is looking at your funnel, looking at your AA, RRR part, which is acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral, the typical Facebook growth framework, and you want to invest in that part? or you want to look at your core product experience and core product funnels and how they're growing. And then very methodically choose which areas that you want to put in what kind of bandwidth and what kind of focus to grow in. So I think that shape kind of has changed for Swiggy. And I think those are questions that startup founders have to ask themselves. Like, how do they want to grow? It's not dumb growth, but it is their own judgment and understanding of their company, their ecosystem. Are they in hockey stick? If not, do they want to take adjacent categories? Do they think that there's a lot of juice, or they're completely inefficient with respect to their core funnels and marketing efficiencies? That could be a good option. So there's no one answer. It will come through reflection.
As a growth thinker, as a growth team, I think what are the aspects that you look at, when you actually start putting together a team like that, right?
Ajay, I think it is a combination of all these 3 or 4 things, right? We are in a way talking about the operating system of a company in itself.
Yeah.
So it's and it's going to go into like a much deeper topic. But let me just touch upon like 5 or 6 things that you have to be very clear of. Different types of teams will need different kind of mindsets. For example, I don't need everybody in my search team to start losing their shit over some extremely short-term problems that happened. I want them to go way deeper, think a lot more, so that they are able to solve for some fundamental problems, or even in, for example, my serviceability teams, etc., right? But for example, in my stores team and in my Genie team or my Swiggy Daily team, I want them to think deeply. Of course, there's no question about not thinking deeply, but probably take decisions with 60%, 70% data, a lot of gut, and a lot of first principle thinking and framework, rather than looking at completely going and validating everything with the consumers, which, for example, I would expect in my Swiggy Super and Swiggy Pop teams. Given that we talked about there are 4 or 5 different kind of teams, each team will need to have like a slightly different way of working within themselves, the leader's expectation with them, and also how do they work together with each other. Because and that's the culture part of it. Because a labs team which may want something very fast, but a core team may want something like very methodical and thought through. And that's the leader's dilemma. How do you make them work with each other? But if you make them work with each other very well, then you get magic.
For the last word, I think maybe anything you would like to share just to conclude this.
So first up, thanks Ajay and Nachi to organize this. I really had a pleasure talking with both of you, and I hope that the community was able to take a few learnings from what I've learned over the last 10 years. I think some last parting was, while today we were focusing a lot on generally to build product teams, growth teams, scale, habits, frameworks, etc. It's very important, again, even if you apply the same frameworks, today to re-evaluate your entire roadmap, especially if you're on consumer side. But now what I'm asking all product managers to do, some fundamental truths are changing. And what is your expectation after 9 months, 12 months? Which fundamental truths would have changed altogether? Would hygienic delivery, contactless delivery in our case be more important than discounts? Do we have opportunities here to kind of drive different consumer behaviors? So I think this is fantastic, especially for product people who have been who are in very competitive spaces but never had the chance to disrupt their competition. It's a fantastic opportunity for you guys, because the world beneath is changing, and that always gives you like a different way to identify opportunities and take that competitive advantage, right? So think a lot, execute fast, pivot if you need to, and thanks a lot once again.
Thank you.